I'm here to see this. This is a lost basin that's been uncovered and it's going to be filled back in soon. I am on the Grand Central Railway, and this is part of the railway, part of a massive railways that went across the Staveley area. And this behind me was the Grand Central Railway. There was lots of sidings all over here. And then we went across here, which is the first of the bridges, which went across the Midlands Railway, which went to Staveley Works in that direction. There's one of two lines here. Another one branched off, which we'll see in a second, and went underneath on the other side. And this here is the new bridge that went in last week. And it's only, well, 4 days since I was here, and it's already open. There's the horse steps. So this is basically, you pull your horse up onto the side here, mount and demount the horse on this section here, so you can lead the horse over, because you're not allowed to ride the horse directly over here. Not really too sure why, to be honest. So this bridge you would have seen in my last video was lifted up from just down there, and it was, first of all, it was welded into one piece. It was 2 sections, and then it was lifted into place. Now this section here is where it was welded, and if you look just above me up here, you can see, well, you can, there's basically 2 marks on that, and that's where it was welded together. And down on the floor here, you've got a strip, which is, again, is very hard to see. It's right here. There's one side of it and another over there. This has been covered since and filled with the little fine gravel. And this is where the half of the bridge was. So they welded that together on site because it was just too big to move in one piece. And already you can see some of all the stuff that's been done. You've got the second horse mounting blocks there. And this wasn't here when I came on Monday. New fencing around, got fencing on the other side. You've got, this was the old path down on this side, which has been completely sort of filled and reprofiled and stuff. So you're now onto the path going through here. Now the second railway line I spoke about came from across over in that direction there, which is Bellhouse Basin, and came across here and came under the railway just over here. So then to the bottom of the bridge area. Now this was all fenced off last time. Like I say, only 4 days ago. They had all the materials piled up over here. You can actually see kind of where it was to build what is effectively the tow path going back underneath the bridge, which, as you can see, has been built through. Now this area here has been fenced off for a long time, and what you can see here is the other end of the walls to the railway. So this was the Midlands Railway coming under here. So that was the bridge just up there that we were on a minute ago. And this is the old walls going into what was the crossing of the canal. So we would be in the canal right now. First, you have a lock. So there's going to be a new lock just in kind of roughly where we are now, actually. And they call it the Keith Ayling lock. Now, it's certainly being fundraised under the name. Keith Ayling was a former chair of the Chesterfield Canal Trust and was pivotal in most of the restoration that's happened before. The sort of 12 miles that were done further back, pretty much all of that was done when he was chair, between 1991 and 2009. Now, if you look here, there's plenty of space for it. This lock is an extra lock. It wasn't ever originally here. I believe it was to do with HS2. So that line was going to be HS2 to a maintenance depot back on the Staveley Works on the other side of the site. They had lots of delays. It's the reason why this canal's been held up for so long, with waiting for HS2 to make up their minds with what was going to happen. Obviously, all the northern stuff's been cancelled now. So this, which was phase 2, never happened. But they've only just recently been allowed to sort of work here again. So the lock was here, and I believe the next lock up, which is on the Staveley Town Basin, that dropped down and then this pulls back up again. So there's a bit of a low point in this bottom section here. That wouldn't have been necessary if HS2 wasn't planned, so they've had to build 2 extra locks. But now the first one's built, they've got to build the second one to get the level back up to where they need it over here. So the Staveley Town deal is a £25 million project, and that project delivers the basin and the locks up on the other end. There's also a cafe and stuff being built now, as well as various other things in the building. It included this bridge. It didn't include the lock, I don't believe, the Keith Ayling lock. The first one, I think it did, not this second one. They were fundraising for that, or they may have been just fundraising for the gates, I'm not sure, but there is a link in the description if you want to donate to that, so please do have a look. So this then takes the canal up to Bellhouse Basin, which we're going to now. Now, Bellhouse Basin is quite exciting at the moment because they are doing archaeological digs on it, and they found quite a lot. And I've made a trip up here today just to see this, really. So the first thing we've got here is the other part of the Midland Railway that came across just in front of us here, and that's roughly where these people are stood now. So part of the dig, they've exposed a lot of this. Look, so this is the old railway across here. So you would have had over there somewhere, you can't see it, but there's a little red flag kind of there, and this would have been at an angle, and the railway would have come across there to the gasworks and stuff, which is over at the basin. Now, depending on what map you look at, it shows this as either just a siding going across literally to the embankment, or other maps show it going through and joining onto the other part, which was going to be the HS2 part. Now, it could be that it changed over the years and different maps show different things, which is probably exactly what happened, but it's an interesting area. Now, what is interesting about this wall is you've got these on here, look. Now, they look like, at first glance, they look like they join that angle to pick up on that sort of steel girder bridge that would have come across here as supports. But when you actually start looking at them a bit more, that one there doesn't actually line up with these ones, and neither do a lot of these ones over here. They are in completely the wrong directions. So it could genuinely be different supports, but it looks more like these were reused from somewhere else, because obviously the canal was much older than the railway, so when the railway was built, they just pulled blocks from somewhere else and reused them. There's some quite interesting stuff in here as well. An old school way of making a fixing was to use a wooden plug. Nowadays you use like a plastic wall plug. So that's exactly what that is there. And in one of these over here, where it's not quite a full hole, you can see there, that's actually steel going down into it, and it's welded itself to the stone. So that's pretty cool. So this would have been the first of several bridges, and just over there would have been another bridge. That would have been a road bridge going across from the end of Bellhouse Lane, but that I think is completely lost. They have had a quick look and they couldn't find anything down there. So let's jump over to the basin just behind and see what we can find.
Hi, I'm Owen. I'm a project officer with York Archaeology. We're out here supporting the Chesterfield Canal Trust on an excavation of a basin. This is the sort of far end, or the prow of the boat that was found in the 2019 excavation. The rest of it runs, and it's sitting within the remains of the basin. The rest of it runs under this packed spoil heap right behind me and off down a slight diagonal, where in 2019 they've also found a cuckoo boat. I believe they have an icebreaker and one other badly damaged boat, and they were all excavated and cleaned very nicely at that point. And we've just found sort of the very edge of one, but most of our work has been sort of more focused towards the actual stonework of the canal. What we have here is quite a simple, or crude is probably a strong word, edge of the canal, we reckon. So if you can kind of see, you've got sort of a mix of stone, a mix of bricks of different age. You've got some sort of slightly more modern bricks, you've got some very thin older bricks being used in construction, and all sort of held in and battered with wooden stakes of various. Some of them are nice cut square ones, some of them are quite literally saplings that someone's chopped off, chopped the end into a point and hammered in, and that runs off underside. And this appears to match up with the line of the original basin. It's probably quite old. It's possible this represents a bit of the original 1870s canal. Now, this has clearly been much repaired over the years. They'll have repaired it and cleaned it and repaired it, but at the very least, this line in its construction is likely original to the canal. So what you've got here, and you can see it quite clearly, is you've got the two sides of the walls, with right behind me the entrance into the wharf of the canal. And the wharf would have run right the way up there, right up through past that hedgerow there, and run about another 40 or 50 feet. The stonework itself is, as you can tell, really substantial. You've got some quite clear dressing. You've got these stones right at the top, are our topmost stones, and same again on this side. What we found is a lot of this stone is not, this is not its first use. A lot of this stone has holes or sort of nooks cut out of them that don't make sense for this current usage. What they probably are is, some of them at least, may be, well, we have a theory that they may be represent stone railway sleepers, which is an early form of building railways, which instead of wooden sleepers that we're more traditionally used to, that had holes in them with wooden dowels cut into them, and wooden railway bars actually forced into them. We've had quite a lot of more modern intrusion. You can see this cast iron pipe leading over the edge, and that just stops at the edge here. You can see where The stone next to it, it's been hit and rotated 90 degrees by the cast iron pipe. Now, what they were dumping in here, I've no idea, but given how oily all this ground is, I really do dread to think about it. You've got another sort of drainage pipe running down behind and running, and again, hitting these stone walls and presumably smashing through them. So what you have these stone walls, but there's also been so much activity that's happened later that there's been quite a lot of damage to them, which is a shame, but we have enough of them that, you know, we can quite conclusively talk about them and really work out what they were. And sort of the final really interesting thing is in the difference in sediment. So what we're stood on, as you can probably see, is horrible. It's sort of a mix of, well, it's the sort of thing you get when a landscape feature is left to silt up over a long period of time. If you see over there where those people stood, obviously you can tell by the fact they're not sinking that that's quite solid ground. And you can kind of see by the colour, it's a more sort of yellowy clay colour. So what we think is that this basin we have here was just left to silt up. And in fact, we've talked to some people who live very locally who remember this basin not that long ago being sort of not wet, but seeing sort of a bit of damp ground, perhaps some marshland. Whereas the ground over there, no one can ever remember any of that ground being wet at all. So what's quite likely, given the difference in fills, given the difference in sort of local memory, that the wharf itself was backfilled quite rapidly, presumably for the extension to the gasworks which ran across the back there. So that was backfilled quite quickly when they needed to reuse it, whereas this basin was just left to silt up over a very long period of time, presumably because no one had any use for the ground.
So unfortunately this will need to be filled back in because they've got to move 260,000 tonnes approximately of clay from behind us, from the bridge that's just been put in, underneath to the puddle banks in front of us over here. So before any work can be done to restore under the bridge and the Bellhouse Basin, they need to get the clay over there. So how cool is this? I never expected to see this weekend. This is proper canal history, proper archaeology. So thanks to York Archaeology for allowing me to come and film on here. It's been fantastic to see, and have a great day.